Welcome to the Hangry Games Arena, where Kelly Brewster, the author of What's Eating You and host of the Hangry Games, is shaking up the weight loss world. She's providing you with tons of resources and helpful tips to obtain your long-term wellness and weight loss goals once and for all. The Hangry Games is recorded and produced at Open Space Studios.
Well, what's up, Hangry Game Nation? How are you guys doing? It's so good to be back. I pray that you've had a great, incredible week. And yes, we're ready for the weekend, right? Can I get a whoop, whoop in the house? That's right. Who isn't ever ready for the weekend, right? Except for those guys. And I'm sorry, guys, but those that work on the weekends, of course. I often tell my staff that if I've actually had the privilege of working with, and I spend a good bit of time with, when you see smoke coming from the back door, don't worry, it's not a fire. That's just my butt hauling out that door, waiting to start the weekend, right? So anyway, as always, I'm praying that you've worked on your takeaways from last week and made sure to bust some myths that you thought were legit for the longest time. Isn't it funny how we get stuck on something? I mean, maybe someone sold us an opinion on something or about weight loss, and we've just adopted it like it's the truth, and only to find out, years later, on a really, really cool podcast, wink, wink, right? That the premise couldn't hold water. And so I am a strong advocate for getting to the truth, making sure you understand the why in what you are doing, because without the why, guys, the how, what, and when are so much harder to obtain, right? I know. So today, I thought we'd have a little bit of fun today. I thought, you know what? We need to do something here that would be a little fun. I think this is going to be anyway. But when I am counseling, coaching, and giving a little Madea-like advice or encouragement to my patients in the clinic, I love to teach with analogies. I am, remember, the queen of analogies, and I've developed a few idioms, phrases, if you will, that if someone heard them just off the cuff and heard them, they may go, that doesn't even make a lick of sense. But when I explain the why to them, then I get this all too familiar light bulb image that goes over just above their heads. So today, I am going to discuss a few of the most common, frequent idioms that I use, what they mean, and absolutely how they can help you in your wellness and weight loss journey. I couldn't even start this topic without hitting one of my favorite ones first, okay? So here we go. We're like right off the bat, right? Very first one, you paint the barn door till the paint sticks, okay? When you first hear that, you're like, what? That doesn't even make a lick of sense. And if you've never hit a barn, you don't even know what that really means, right? Well, in literal terms, they didn't, sand down the barn every time they had to repaint it. They just kept painting over the paint that was already there, and you just have to keep doing it until the paint stays. So that's kind of what that means in a literal term. But from an idiom standpoint, and I've referred to this, I know that several of the podcasts I've kind of talked a little bit about this, but it's by far one of my most favorite of them. This was a saying that was first spoken to me many, many moons ago. I worked in a labor and delivery unit, and it was an older OBGYN by the name of Dr. Robert Kaziu. He was such a doll. Him and I got along so well. And just an absolute dear friend of mine that I had a privilege to work with. And I was just frustrated. I was frustrated one day. I had an endeavor that I embarked on, and I was just running into obstacles. I was just, I'm swimming against the current. And he said, Kelly, you just need to paint the barn door till the paint sticks. And of course, I gave him the same look that my patients gave me when he first said it. I'm sure my face was like, for you listening to the podcast, you don't see my face, but it's the Kelly face. My husband knows it quite well, and so do some of the people that I work with at the office. But yeah, I kind of looked at him like, what? And he went on to say that the only way to reach your goal is to keep doing what you are doing until something happens. And we all want weight loss to be easy, quick, and by gosh, can you make it painless too? Come on now. But the fact of the matter is, weight loss, good, sustainable weight loss, it takes time. It takes lots of effort. And yes, even a little bit of blood, that's your blood work, sweat, your exercise, and of course, tears. And that's just kind of when you have to let go of some of the bad stuff, the things that you love to eat and drink and all that stuff. You got to have that stick-to-itiveness that we mentioned before to make sure that what you've implemented in your eating plan, exercise, and your behavioral changes is going to pay off. What we need to realize is we now reside in a microwave society. You got 5G internet, lightning speed transportation, information at our fingertips in a millisecond, right? But our bodies are still slow cookers. They have not evolved. Yes, I'm doing air quotes again, right? Our bodies will take all of the necessary time needed to obtain the goals that you've set, and everyone is different. So buckle up, my friends. You are not on a high-speed roller coaster to the smallest version of yourself, but you're more like on a Greyhound bus. And I say that because if you haven't ever ridden a Greyhound bus, back in the day, my mother put me on a Greyhound bus to New Orleans to my grandmother's. Now, it's an hour trip, but she couldn't drive over, and she was like, I'm just going to put her in the Greyhound bus and go on over. Well, if you know anything about that, they stop like every 10 or 15 minutes. They literally stop at every small town. So think of it like this. You're on a Greyhound bus that's stopping at every small town between here and Reno. And that's your wellness and your weight loss journey. But taking your time and being persistent and steadfast with clean eating, exercise, and those small changes over time that can lead to big differences is what will make the biggest impact in your weight loss journey, more than you can ever imagine. Enjoy the scenic route if you can. Realize that there will be times where you don't necessarily see anything happening, but know that if you remain diligent with your strategies, you will see a change. Now, if you don't, given enough time and enough compliance, right? You've given a lot of time, given a lot of energy, and you're like, Kelly, I'm still not seeing it. And yes, I'm doing all the things you told me to do, and okay, whatever. If you've done all of that, then I would say you should be asking a provider or a professional nutritionist, is there something that I could be doing differently or something that I can add to my existing plan to help me and benefit me in the long run for success? But have no fear. If you do the right things for a long enough time, you will see the difference. So I hope that made a little bit of sense to you. So another very common saying that I use when I'm talking with patients is, and I've mentioned this before, but I really want to explain it and get into a little bit more depth when I talk about it. But, of course, I tell patients, did you do your weekly glass check on yourself? And they, of course, I get another one of those like, yeah, that look, like the what the heck look, and which I completely anticipate happening. When I see it, I'm like, I chuckle inside, I'm like, I saw that before. But the weekly glass check moments are absolutely essential for your success in this wellness and weight loss journey, okay? This is a process that truly can be used by the novice who's just starting a weight loss program, and even someone that teaches it to individuals on a daily basis, like me. In hockey, and for those hockey fans out there, I've only seen actually a couple of games live. I've seen a few on TV, but, I haven't had the draw because we didn't have it here down deep in the South. I mean, you don't just have a lot of ice rinks just easily accessible here. But I've only had an opportunity to attend a couple of them. They're a lot of fun to go to. I love watching the intensity of the players as they effortlessly glide across the ice to get to this small little black puck to its intended target. And they literally are so focused and so driven by that small little puck. And then all of a sudden, wham, and they get just slammed upside the glass between the rink and, all of those that are attending, the spectators. I mean, they get their clock cleaned. It wakes them up. They get jostled, and they get kind of brought back to reality. And I mean, like, quick. That is what your glass check questions should be for each of us. These 3 questions should be asked by you to you at the very least on a weekly basis. Why? Because when the rubber meets the road, you, my friend, are your best and your most honest accountability partner if you allow yourself to do it. So the first question, am I eating the right foods and avoiding the wrong ones? So i.e., when we talk about the right foods, am I eating good proteins, whole grains, and low glycemic fruits? Remember, that's low sugar in the fruits, like your berries and, green apples are lower. Your medium glycemic is going to be like watermelon stuff. I want you to stay away from like bananas, grapes, oranges. Those are very high in glycemic index. Am I eating clean foods that are prepared with weight loss in mind? Or am I eating more processed, refined carbohydrates, eating more high glycemic fruits, as we mentioned before, or even worse, canned fruits, which is, don't even get me started on that. That's just full of sugar. Am I eating maybe more sodium than I should be doing at this time? And what about alcohol? Have I indulged too much or had a lot of sweet, fruity kind of drinks? And am I indulging in all too well those margaritas, martinis than you would really care to admit? This first question is so important because we often have a tendency to forget about the things that have sabotaged us during this course of the week. And then we wonder why the needle on the scale seems to be stuck. You're shaking it, rattling it, you put it back down, you get back on, and it says the same thing, right? So keep in mind, and we have talked about this ad nauseum, things like alcohol are absolutely empty calories, and your body will simply absorb it and then store it. Here's where you need to look at your expectation and your rationalization in the prep steps and see if you came up with some lame excuses, right? For stepping off the established plan that you made for yourself? Or did you maybe put some expectations in place that were too far to reach to? They were overreaching and maybe they were a little unrealistic for you that week. And you didn't give yourself a lot of room for just some minor little errors and sidesteps here and there. I mean, really, you gotta look at that. So when you're looking at, am I eating the right foods? Just go through it, do, right? And check it off. No, yes, whatever. And then am I eating the wrong foods? And you really do have to, you got to be candid and honest with yourself if you're going to see any difference and if that little exercise that's so vital will work for you. Now, the second question is, am I eating the right amount of calories? This one is so good because we always, and I mean we always underestimate our food intake and we always overestimate our exercise. If you're on a calorie-restricted diet and if weight loss is your goal, you should very well be on some form of a calorie deficit, let's say maybe between 1,200 or 1,500 calories a day, and that would be based on your exercise and your physical activity level. Do you realize how quickly you can get to 1,200 calories in a day? I have a quick little story here. My boss had she had put a treadmill, no, it was actually elliptical, in the office in our break area. And at the time I was doing MyFitnessPal. And I think by 1 o'clock that day, I had about 200 calories that I could eat until bedtime. So I was like, okay, well, the only way it'll give me more calories is if I get additional exercise in. So I literally, before I left the office, jumped on the elliptical and did about 15 minutes of work to just give me a little bit of extra calories so that I could at least eat a little something before I went to bed. So, I mean, we always do. We always overestimate the intake and the exercise and underestimate the intake. So the absolute best way to ensure that you're not requiring a major glass check this week in regards to the amount you're eating, you really need to kind of journal. That really is actually one of the ways that is easiest to make sure that you are on track. There are a lot of really cool calorie counting apps. We've talked about them in previous podcasts. I think the ones that are super easy to use are MyFitnessPal and the Weight Watchers apps. MyFitnessPal is free. Weight Watchers app is not. Okay, so if you're on a budget, I would definitely go with the MyFitnessPal. And these I find are very tried and true. The MyFitnessPal does work on calorie, whereas Weight Watchers works on a point system. But essentially, it comes down to it's counting the same things. It's just a different method. I really do feel like sometimes Weight Watchers is Common Core, but anyway. So simply put, all you're doing is putting this input in. You're just putting all the calories that you're taking in. A lot of them have barcodes now where you can just scan it with your phone. You can scan the barcode on what you're eating with your phone. I'm praying that there's not a lot of foods that you're eating that has barcodes on them. You know what I'm saying? And it starts subtracting from what your daily requirement's going to be. So it's an easy way to keep track of things so that you don't underestimate, okay? It keeps track of the amount of proteins, the amount of fat, carbohydrate intake that you've had for the day, just so that you know if you've reached that target in that daily intake. No one, okay? No one, and I mean no one, is immune to underestimating their calorie intake, and that includes me. It is the fastest way to no movement in your wellness and weight loss journey. So checking in on this frequently is the best way to ensure you will not get derailed in the process. And of course, the third glass check question is, am I exercising? Easy enough, right? Often many individuals mistaken steps for exercise. I love this one because we have this conversation all the time. I love that you guys have iWatches, Fitbits, and all that other hot mess that's out there, and you can keep up with everything. I myself still have a binder, which is my daily planner that I do, in fact, write in pencil, and that is never going to change. I love that. I'm old school. Remember, I'm OG, right? And it just helps you to see. And I love the fact that these tools and this technology allows you to see that you're becoming more active, and that's great. I like that. But it is not exercise, folks. I don't care what they will try and tell you. Exercise requires exertion. It requires effort. And yes, it might require a little sweat along the way. It requires you to get your heart rate up enough that your body goes, wait. What is going on here? And then it automatically starts boosting your metabolic rate to accommodate the change in the physical activity. And it's not sometimes just for that moment that you're doing it, the activity, but it can default to a higher rate because it's just trying to catch up from what you made it do a few seconds ago. Okay? Now, I don't need you to be a triathlete. You don't even have to spend gobs of money on a trainer or a gym membership or anything like that. And you don't need to buy all those fancy apps either. We will have some podcasts in the near future dedicated to the exercise. So don't worry. I've kind of held off on doing those because I wanted you to get some understanding about the eating and the behavioral changes because that is very important. And then we're going to talk about how exercise works in all of that. But you do need to increase your heart rate, maybe do a little bit of weight-bearing exercise. This is where you're actually holding weights and doing squats or doing, overhead presses or bench presses, things like that. And you want to do something about 20 to 30 minutes at a time for about at least 3 times a week, okay? I get it. You're working 50 hours a week at a desk job. You do not know how many times I've heard that over the course of 20 years. I get it, but do something, okay? You have a 15-minute window of time somewhere, sometime in the course of your week, a couple of times that you can get something in, okay? You're fooling yourself if you can't, okay? And sometimes this question is often the one that leaves many just dazed by the impact of the glass slam. Like, I say, okay, let's talk about the glass check questions. And I like rattle them off, and I told them the first two questions and then go, okay, what about exercise? And a lot of times the common response that I get is, well, okay. Well is actually no in another language. I'm not sure what language it's translating from, but it is no in another language, okay? It is the hardest part of the triad of treatment to employ, but when you can do it, it has the biggest impact in your energy, your lean body mass, and of course, your weight loss goals. You need to ask these questions at the very least weekly. You need to write them down. You need to put them on a sticky note on the bathroom mirror. Maybe you need to make it your screensaver at work. I don't care. Just make sure that you keep yourself accountable and honest in the process. All right. So the third idiom that I use, which is a fairly new one, has two parts. And I know that I'm going to get a lot of people that are going to go, oh my gosh, she's kind of lost it. The first part of this is I usually refer to Thor from the Marvel comics. Oh, yes, I do. And I'm not talking about the comics. I'm talking about, I'm a huge Marvel fan. And who wouldn't be? I mean, come on, Chris Hemsworth. I mean, really, people please, right? You can imagine the faces of my patients when I say that the medication they are taking is a lot like a hammer, like Thor's hammer. And they just give me this look like, I kind of think she's lost the last few marbles that she had and that she might have been holding on to, but they're gone. But hear me out, and then we'll talk later. In one of the Thor movies, he is fighting his sister, who, by the way, is kicking his butt, and he has a vision from his father. And his father tells him something, and I'm kind of just surmising this, but he says, I can't win. I can't win. I don't have my hammer. That's the best version of what his accent that I can give you. But anyway, and his dad simply says, are you the god of the hammer or are you the god of thunder? See, the hammer was not your source of power. It was meant to help you control your power. Well, for you on this wellness and weight loss journey, if you are on any medication, maybe you've been prescribed, maybe you're using some supplements over the counter, what have you, to assist you in this process. It, my friends, is just a hammer. It's just a tool. It's not the source of your power. You're the source. You have everything in you to make this work. It's just helping you in your journey. And I've got many patients that are either on all the GLP-1s, whether it's Wegovy or it's Ozempic or it's Saxenda, Mounjaro, any of those. And that is a very dangerous tool because it makes them think they don't have to do anything else to see the results. But at the end of the day, if you don't put those things in place, we're going to get to the second part of this idiom. If you don't do those things, then you are going to have issues later on. So you are the one, right, that has the ability to put the eating plan, the exercise, and the behavior changes in place to make the biggest and the most essential change in your weight loss. Kind of think of it like this, all right? So same hammer, different analogy. You want to build a smaller version of you, right? Okay, I get it. Everybody kind of likes a little bit smaller version of themselves, right? I'm downsizing. I'm going to a tiny house, right? And you want to just reside in that house and you want to move from where you are that you're currently residing in every day, right? And you bring your hammer with you. You got your hammer. You don't have any supplies. You don't have any lumber, no nails, just your hammer. And you can absolutely kick up some dust. You even think you're seeing some progress, right? But when the dust settles, if you haven't implemented the foundation to the process, the eating plan, exercise, behavior changes, then all you're left with is only one option, and that's to go back to the larger version of the house you reside in. So the fastest way to regaining your weight is to not have a sound, sustainable plan in place that you can realistically stick with through the course of time. So yes, that's one of my newer idioms. And let me tell you something, I am having fun with that one. I really am. Because it's got a lot to do with it. And the other thing too, Is the medicines you're on or the things that you're doing a hammer or a crutch? We'll leave that for another day. Think about that. Is it something I'm leaning on and I'm never going to get over and I'm never going to be able to do it without it? Or is it going to help me to build something that's going to be sustainable long term? That's just a little free one right there for you. Okay, so the last two are not necessarily any that I came up with per se, but if I have to say, a few of these have been a bit of a broken record for me. The first is, and you've heard this before, but knowledge is power. When you have educated yourself on the eating plans that are available to you, the medications that you are a candidate for, and what exercises fit your schedule and your lifestyle, then you are the most formidable contender for your own wellness and weight loss. Be informed, stay educated. Sometimes through this process, we can hit untapped potential passions that we might have for something we never knew we realized we had. Maybe you're an exercise buff and you never really knew it. Maybe you love nutrition and all of the things that go with it so much that it changes the trajectory of what you do for a living. You never know what you're going to untap by becoming more knowledgeable about what you're trying to accomplish. Having your head in the sand like the ostrich doesn't leave you still left holding the cards, people. Just because you got your head in the sand doesn't mean that you're not going to have to pay the piper in the end. By the way, all of these are idioms, just so you know. It's kind of like idiom day, right? And the last one I do want to talk about. So that was just a really quick one, but the last one I wanted to talk about, because I have tons that I refer to, but these are just some of the big common ones that I use, is the one that I have said for over the last 30 years. It is actually a personal mantra of mine, and it can drive it can drive you and to have a change in your mindset and what you desire really forever. So the mantra goes, or the idiom goes something like this: if I always do what I've always done, I will always get what I've always gotten. Now, it sounds like a Friends episode, right? Remember that episode where they said, they don't know that we know that they know, right? I love that episode. But think about what I said. If I always do what I have always done, I will always get what I've always gotten. If you do the same diet, despite your inability to stick with it, the same old exercise routines because you don't want to be creative and think out of the box, what makes you think that the results you're going to obtain are any different than the ones you got before? Even in the journey, if you hit a plateau, maybe hit a wall, then reevaluate where you are and then maybe change some things up to catalyze or maybe even re-energize your wellness and weight loss journey. You determine your success, and sometimes a fresh outlook, maybe fresh eyes on your current situation, may be just what the NP called for. So guess what? We're already out of time. That's crazy. I only did a few of my idioms. I'll have to maybe do like a part 2 somewhere down the line because I got plenty of them. I'm always coming up with them. It's just, I don't know. I love teaching with analogies and having these little mantras and idioms to talk about. So you guys have been great. This has always been a blast. Your biggest takeaways for today is find your mantra, your idiom that can push you to the next level with this journey. Shoot, just use any of mine. I don't care. Just do something that pushes you past the mundane and the status quo in this journey, and you will never be disappointed. Please make sure to subscribe to the Hangry Games on Spotify, Audible, and iHeartRadio so you can catch it. And you know when the new episodes are downloading. And also you can catch it on prepforit.com on our YouTube channel. Check out the prepforit.com website for free resources. And as always, may the odds always be in your favor. We are out. Deuces. See you later, alligator. You're right. They're all idioms. All right. Have a blessed one, and I'll see you next time.